So, let's begin with a little meditation. Sit comfortably. Relax your body. Relax your mind. Relaxing your mind is actually the fine art of relaxation, isn't it? The fine meaning of relaxation. Letting go of worries, discursive thoughts, plans, fantasies, daydreams. You need a frame of mind to begin with. Think, for the benefit of others, I'm going to meditate on tranquil abiding, on calm abiding, so that I can make the realizations of the path very quickly and powerfully. And for that purpose, I'm going to begin, just for a few respirations, to watch my breathing. Recognize when you're breathing in through your nostrils, when it changes direction. When you're breathing out, recognize when it's changing directions again. Keep your mind, your mental consciousness focused on that. Try to keep quiet if you're coming in late. Now let go of the respiration and visualize, as we did yesterday, at the place in front, at the level of your brow, about one body length in front. Our teacher, the founder, Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. Very small, about his holy body will be about the size perhaps of your hand, or better still, your thumb. He's seated upon a lion-supported throne, upon which golden throne, which is emblazoned with a double vajra, crossed vajras, representing immutable state that he's attained. Upon that is a lotus, multicolored lotus, the petals of which form a cushion, upon which is a sun disk and a moon disk. Those three cushions representing his, in some representations, his realizations of renunciation, wisdom, and bodhicitta. Upon that, Buddha, in the form of the aspect of a monk, wearing the saffron robes, cross-legged in the Vajra position, golden-hued body, an emanation of light. His right hand is in the earth-touching mudra over his right knee. His left hand is at his waist, holding a begging bowl filled with nectar. His right arm is bare. His left arm is covered with his robe as it's placed over there. It's a very pleasing, beautiful face, ruby red lips, very compassionate eyes, looking upon us as though alive right now. The omniscient mind definitely present within our visualization, as it's omnipresent, as it's present everywhere. Between his brows is a curl of white hair, one of the signs of the Buddha. as within the palms and soles of his feet are emblazoned the Dharma chakra, the nails of his hands and feet are copper-colored. His ears are large, earlobes long, hanging down. The blackish-blue hair on the crown of his head is in tufts, circling clockwise. And crowned at the very top, the crown protuberance of flesh, the Ushnisha. So try to overcome the second obstacle, which is forgetting the instruction. Here the instruction is the object that we're trying to find, the visualization of Shakyamuni. At the level of your brow, very small, one body length in front. You're not visualizing with your eye consciousness, but within the clarity of your mind. Again, by yourself, go through the various elements, starting from below, the lion-supported throne, up to the Ushnisha at top. Whatever aspects of the visualization are appearing to you, be satisfied with that now and just hold that single-pointedly. If the image begins to fade or is lost for a moment, try to revivify that simply, first of all, through the force of mindfulness, the memory of what you just visualized, to overcome forgetting the instruction. As Rinpoche mentioned yesterday, the third fault, sinking and excitement, the antidote of which is alertness, the mental factor, introspection or alertness. It's not the actual antidote, but is necessary, like the guard or spy that recognizes the onset. Here, perhaps the first of the two which will be noticed is gross excitement, that your mind has left the object, the mental object, the visualization of Shakyamuni, having wandered off due to excitement to some other object, some other thought. So you need to invest some mental energy into that kind of state of mind. It's a wisdom consciousness, alertness, that recognizes that you have, in this case, left the object, the onset of excitement, or perhaps you have seemingly the object in front of your mind, but part of your mental energy is also thinking about something else, some worry or some plan, some interesting idea. Like water moving below the surface of ice. At first, unseen, only noticed when you either cut a hole in the ice or look carefully through the transparent portions of the ice. At first, you may not be plagued by the fault of sinking, at least subtle sinking, not at first, although it will be there in a grosser form. First, kind of a darkness of mind, an obscuring cloudiness of mind that doesn't allow you to see clearly the object, prevents that, sort of obscures that. Or even if you have the object, it's not very clear, gross sinking. So try to overcome the fourth fault, which is once the mental spy of introspection has seen the onset of excitement or sinking, to apply the appropriate antidote. If you've lost the object, bring your attention back to it and hold fast to that, reminding yourself you can think about these other thoughts later. If the object is not very clear, try to strengthen, squeeze slightly your mind, not your body, your attention. Be a little more strict. If you notice yourself getting involved with the eye consciousness or ear consciousness, again, let go and focus just on the visualized object in front. Relax your body and mind. Recall through the force of mindfulness the object, or if need be, recall the instruction by analyzing. And within this clarity of your mind, at the level of your brow and body length in front, very small, within the heart chakra of the Buddha there, his body and robes, everything transparent. Imagine a moon disk at his heart chakra within his body, upon which is his mantra, Tayata Om Mune Mune Maha Munaye Svaha, circling clockwise. In the center, standing erect, as are the letters of the mantra, syllables of the mantra, standing erect is the seed syllable, Mam. There's the M sound at the end. In Tibetan, it's represented like a little dot above the object, above the letter that represents, although the object is named as a letter that names it, it's still empty. The union of appearance and emptiness. M for Muni. And as we recite the mantra, imagine taking refuge, ourself, leading all sentient beings in refuge to the Buddha, his realization, the Dharma that he taught from his own experience, and the Sangha, many of whom were emanations of the Buddha, who helped us understand how to take the medicine of the Dharma. Imagine all living beings around us filling space, our friends, our family, our loved ones, strangers, and even those that we're afraid of now. We might call enemies, or we might just might call irritants to us, who push our buttons. We might be afraid they want to harm us or ignore our good qualities or whatever. Imagine that light from the mantra and the seed syllable goes out as we recite the mantra, leading them all in taking refuge, purifying all of them, overcoming their mistaken ideas, their ignorance, their delusions, along with our own, filling us with realizations, preparing us to hear, first to review the teachings and then to hear the next lesson on calm abiding. Taya ta mune mune maha munai soha. Taya ta mune mune maha munai svaha. Taya ta mune mune maha munai svaha. Imagine your body and mind filled with light, first white, purifying all your obscurations, all the heaviness of mind, delusions, sorrow, worries. Then golden light, bringing along all the realizations of good heart and wisdom. Likewise for all sentient beings. And then relax. Bring your attention back. So, any questions from yesterday's discourse? This is the second question and answer period. Venerable.
Is it, I understand from Prabhupada Rinpoche's text that you can attain, and from what Ribur was saying, that you can attain Shinei before you do the rest of the Lamrim meditations, Guru Devotion, Precious Human Rebirth. He seemed to be saying that then if you get Shinei, based on that, you would get the other realizations much more quickly. Is there a reason then why it's not stressed in like the Lamrim Chen or other texts that it seems to be that the order is that you would get Guru Devotion, Lamrim, and all the other Lamrim realizations before you take Shinei? So I'm just wondering, is that particular to the individual that you would get the Shinei first?
Did everyone understand the question? So, Venerable, you have to speak a wee bit louder in the future. I know. From the Scottish lowlands, are you? From the lowlands? I think in the lowlands the sound goes long ways or something. Venerable said that, as it said in the teachings here, that if you have tranquil abiding, this kind of concentrated state, you can make the Lamrim realization, such as Guru Devotion, bodhicitta, realization of emptiness of Four Noble Truths, very quickly and powerfully. So why is it that it is not mentioned at the beginning? It only comes at the very end of the text. Maybe it's wrong. Someone, somewhere along the lines, someone got the pages wrong, and the Shinei should have come first. Maybe it's like that. I don't know. No. We have to train at the beginning. To develop tranquil abiding is going to be very difficult because we don't have the prerequisites. We don't have faith that overcomes the laziness. Because one of the kinds of laziness is the laziness that's attached to negative actions, which is attached to the pleasures of this life. How many people have the faith to do a 6-month retreat and give up all other activities? Okay, so you need to have some kind of motivating factor by studying about Buddhism. Also, you need to know the instructions. Some of the instructions to overcome laxity or sinking and excitement involve Lanrim meditations to revivify the mind, to help to bring it back. You need to be able to overcome the delusions. You need to have first trained the mind to be calm. You need first, as a prerequisite, you need to have pure morality. How does that come about? From training in the Lanrim. So if you think about it, if you look at the prerequisites in a deeper way, and in addition to the prerequisites, the various of these antidotes, remedies to the 5 faults, the 8 remedies, some of them, not only the prerequisites, but the remedies involve Lanrim realizations. Unless you have an accumulation of merit, in addition, it's very difficult to make any kind of realization, Lanrim or Shine. To be successful in developing tranquil abiding, it's not just a matter of deciding, okay, Auntie left me $40,000. Okay, I'm going to go and do retreat, and I'll, 6 months I'll attain Shine. What do you think? Is that easy? Just decide you're going to do it. One of my teachers, Geshe Rapton, one of the great lamas who was one of the senshabs of His Holiness, one of the debating partners of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Rinpoche said he lived in a little house behind Ling Rinpoche's house in Dharamsala. Maybe you know if you'd been there. And where Gen Wangdu lived later. Gen Wangdu had been his cook. He said he saw many people, many lay people, Tibetans, coming up to go up the hill to where the meditators meditated in Dharamsala, carrying bags of sampa, Tibetan flour, on their back. And he said, "Where are you going?" And they said, "Shine, Drogin. I'm going for Shine." They're going to attain tranquil abiding up in the cave on the hill. And then, like a couple of days later, they would come down, and he would look at them and sort of, what's the story? And they'd say, "Shine Mindu." Do you know what that means? There is no Shine. It doesn't exist. So in other words, they tried with some kind of superficial kind of sense of renunciation and determination. Remember, of the faults of the antidotes of laziness, one of them is enthusiastic perseverance. That kind of perseverance, to keep persevering when there are obstacles, even when it gets boring, when your mind seems to be dull for days at a time, unless you have that kind of perseverance born of meditating on the Lanrim for a long period of time, you're not going to be successful. So to have that, you need to have those kinds of realizations. So in the proper time, in a sense, to really put effort in tranquil abiding is once you're already trained in the general path. You've studied and you've contemplated with some similitude, something similar to Shine as much as you can. And as you receive the instructions, try to put it into practice in every meditative session. Then when the occasion occurs, if you do a long retreat, if it's a Lanrim retreat, one of the periods of time you use, try to use some object as your main object of focus, maybe Buddha Shakyamuni as you're taking refuge every session. And, of course, apply the teachings on Shine during your Lanrim meditations. If you do just a Shine retreat, it would probably be better to do, for most people, not all, probably better to do once you're already trained a bit in the Lanrim, have done some Lanrim meditation, know the pitfalls of meditation, have developed faith, have some kind of aspiration to attain this state.
Your guru as well, I would imagine. Because if you don't necessarily have the realizations, but you have some general,
You don't need realizations because the point is, if you have a general understanding of the path, even realization of perfect human rebirth. Anyone here who's realized perfect human rebirth? You can state unambiguously you've realized the perfect human rebirth. Pardon? No, I don't mean realized in the sense of having, but I mean realized the sign of realizing the perfect human rebirth, that you have a life of leisure and endowment, is that you would not waste one instant, day and night, recognizing how. So we reevaluate that. Okay. So you have to have a general understanding Like, for instance, to meditate on emptiness doesn't mean you've already realized emptiness in order to meditate on it, but you have to have a correct intellectual understanding. So once you've had a correct intellectual understanding of the path and some little experience of it, then when you do a Shine retreat, if you were to do a Shine retreat, it could be much more powerful. There may be some certain individuals who their teachers might, for various reasons, if they have the karma from past lifetimes, have them do a Shine retreat right from the beginning. Some people enter the monasteries and don't have a chance to study the Lan Rim before they're studying collected topics and Loreg and all these technical subjects that might seem dry to us, maybe because they have the karma to be able to evolve that way, but they try to, even in the monasteries, they try to teach and they have an experience of Lan Rim also. Okay. Anyone else have a question? Back there, yeah.
I have two questions. The first is, Lama yesterday talked about the need to apply the antidote sometimes when you are sinking or excited, and the dangers of over-applying the antidotes. But he didn't specifically mention what the antidotes were. And since I'm not familiar with them, I'd like to know.
Okay. We in our in session, we were just talking about that. You may have come in late. If you take a look at this text, I don't have the numbers in the other text. On page 249, the fourth fault, failing to apply the antidote. So what's the antidote to that fault? Yeah, application of the antidote. So here, and the question that, what's your name? Joe, or Joel? Joel. So here, it almost looks like Joel wrote this phrase because it says, you might well ask, what sort of antidotes do I need to apply? The second paragraph down. So if you have a chance to read, in addition here, subtle, here it translates languor, which we could call sinking or something like that, comes about through a form of mental listlessness. In fact, languor and lassitude, or sort of darkness of mind, are both translated, and lassitude are both translated or translations for the same term in Sanskrit. Thus, if the qualities of stability and clarity are both present, so here's important to know, it may come up, there are these two factors that are important in developing calm abiding. One of them is stability, and one of them is clarity. Okay? Stability means the object is there, is present. If you've lost the object, that's an extreme form, such as in excitement, that's an extreme form of losing stability, right? Another kind of instability would mean that your mind kind of goes partially off to some object, partially, then comes back. It's not completely stable, it's not present constantly. It isn't abiding, as in the word calm abiding. It's not abiding constantly. Another kind of lack of stability would mean when subtle excitement is present, part of your mental energy is engaging some other daydream. Probably sometimes you read a book, I bet you know this experience, and you actually are reading the words, your eyes are going through, but at the end of the chapter, you put on, what was that about? You know, you might have, maybe the whole book, maybe the whole course. Your mind was split. You're not totally attentive. Kind of is, in a sense, is partially inattentive, like an inattentive consciousness. So, in order to overcome these, it said the Blessed One, that means the Buddha, the Bhagavan, explained this point using the analogy of a lute strings, tuning of a lute or a musical instrument with stringed instrument, pointing out how the instrument produces beautiful sound only when the strings have the right amount of tension, not when they're too tight or when they're too loose. So we have to be able to tighten and loosen our attention to the object. If we notice either excitement or sinking coming. If excitement is present, we need to loosen our attention a little bit to the object. Because tightening our attention causes the mind to be excited a little bit. We have to find the right balance. When we're losing the clarity of the object, or the intensity of the clarity, we need to tighten our attention to the object. So those are some initial things. Other things, for instance, if you notice your mind wandering to other objects, sometimes you have to actually leave the object of meditation for some time, recognizing if you're daydreaming about something or something is recurring in your mind that you can actually notice that you're going to. You know, some friend's face or some event that's coming up or whatever. And actually attend to that with the meditative antidotes, reminding yourself that anything that's attractive is of the nature of suffering, is impermanent, it won't really bring you happiness. And remind yourself that now, this period of time, I'm going to apply myself to meditation. I can think about these things at other times, if I do have to think. If the urge comes, the karmic winds arise so strongly, I have to think about them, I can think about them later. If the mind becomes very dull, there are other antidotes to use. You need to be able to enliven the mind when sinking takes place. In this section, although Rinpoche didn't mention them, he sort of, by the necessity of time, is not able to go through every single point here. But for instance, when the mind begins to sink and get dull, you need to be able to revivify the mind. So you might have to leave the object again, even though you have you tried to squeeze the attention, you tried to brighten the object. That's another thing you can do before you give up watching the object. Say, Shakyamuni, you try to make it brighter. Do you follow what I mean? Imagine gold and radiating body. Tighten your attention. Okay? Then if that doesn't work, you might have to leave the objects for a moment, still keeping it generally there, but thinking of something which will enliven the mind. And this requires, as I mentioned to Venerable before, being familiar with some of the Lamrim meditation, something that can think, I've got a perfect human rebirth. This is so rare. If you're already familiar with a perfect rebirth, the fact of leisure endowment is so rare and meaningful, that can bring joy to the mind immediately. Think of one's guru and so forth. If the mind is excited and you need to calm it down, you can also think of death and impermanence. The other kinds of meditations, sobering meditations, that bring the excited mind into some kind of control. In extreme cases, so you've tried that. First of all, you tried, say if sinking is there, you try to brighten the object. You try to tighten the awareness. If the mind is excited, you try to loosen your grasp to it a little bit, but still apply mindfulness. And then you might apply these other kinds of antidotes to either enliven the mind, brighten it, bring it up if it's going down, or bring it down if it's going up too much. If it's excited, to sober it by thinking of death and impermanence. You might also bring the object down a little bit. As it's mentioned in the text here, as Rinpoche mentioned yesterday, you can visualize at the level of the navel, instead of at the level of the brow, you can bring it down to the level of the navel. In a sense, that helps also to bring the winds down if the mind is excited. Do you follow? But still keeping in front. I'm not talking about your navel chakra here in the front. Then in extreme cases, you might have to, there's some meditations that Pabonka Rinpoche himself mentions. If there's sinking, imagine your mind as a luminous drop at your heart chakra. And imagine it expelled through your crown, saying the letter Pe, out into space, into, way up above the clouds. You can see beautiful, beautiful, vast, clear space, and just abide there for some time. That helps to enliven the mind. In extreme cases, you might have to get up from the meditative cushion and go out and walk and look at the sky. That's why yogis and yoginis often meditate in high places where there's not a lot of obstructions, where they can see a vast horizon and so forth. Other kinds of things you can do temporarily is you can take some water, sprinkle on your face, or take your if you have, it's good to meditate with some kind of upper garment. If you have a sweater or something, take off so some air circulates under your arms. That can help if the mind is sinking. Take some water. Once when we were meditating at Lama Zopa Rinpoche's cave in Nepal called Laudo, one of our comrades, we called Lama Pasang, who passed away some years ago, who was like Buddha's body, always doing the work of the monastery. Lama Pasang was there, but he was falling asleep in the session. Lama Zopa Rinpoche was reciting mantra and noticing this. So he asked for a bowl of water from the altar, and they handed it to him as he was reciting mantra, and he poured it on Lama's head. One of the things you can do is you can put a bowl of water on your head, a very small one. Don't put, this might be dangerous. And if you begin to nod off, or you can put bells around, there are various kinds of things to notice if you're nodding off. In terms of excitement, the main thing is that you have to apply the antidotes to excitement to bring to overcome that excitement. So there you might want to use, once you've left the object, you might want to spend some time meditating on the shortcomings of samsara, the shortcomings of these things that you are moving to. Okay? In extreme cases, you might want to get up. If you're very, very dull, you might want to take a shower, wash and certainly between sessions. Washing before each session helps. And in extreme cases, go to bed. It's a cure for both excitement and mental sinking. Mental sinking sometimes takes place because you're tired. You've been meditating too many sessions. Okay. Kyabje Trijang Rinpoche, my abbot, who gave me the vows of a novice and who was one of the tutors of the Dalai Lama, said, when you feel your mind is crazy and you're about to do negative actions, think negative things, if you can't do anything else, go to sleep. Because if you really go to sleep, there's a certain continuity that you've started now of mental discursiveness that's cut, even if you can't cut it through the power of your meditation. Best way is to cut through meditation. Sometimes we think, I need to relax, I need to go off, I need to play, I need to go to the disco, have a date, whatever. I remember at the monastery in England, one of my teachers there, I mentioned how I wanted to relax. So I was thinking of going out, and he said, oh, that's okay. It's okay to do. But, meditators, when they have problems with the mind, they meditate. So we need to relax, of course, but don't think that that's the final antidote is going to come about through meditation. So I don't know if that answers your question precisely, but you can find some of the details here in this section of the text. And indeed, Rinpoche did, by the necessity of time, go through that quite quickly. Someone else have a question? Yeah.
Question about the object.
Okay, quickly, because we just have a couple minutes.
They said once you pick an object, stay with it. So we start with Shakyamuni Buddha. Now, when they say stay with it, do they mean if we're doing a particular retreat, or if for the rest of our life, or?
Well, it means if you're trying to develop Shine, during that Shine retreat, if you're first, like Rinpoche actually said in the course of the discourse, he said that if you're meditating and after a couple of days you think, or maybe a couple minutes or a couple sessions, this is not working. Maybe I should try Tara, and then you try that for a while, and you're bouncing back and forth. You're not going to be able to achieve tranquil abiding. It's better to, once you have chosen an object for the Shine retreat, just to keep that. Or if you're using an object daily for a course of a couple of months, you're going to try to develop tranquil abiding. Mainly just use that one object. So that's why you need some experience first, in answer to Venerable's question also, to know what object to choose. If you have the luxury of having a spiritual guide who knows your personality and can advise what will be a good object for you to use, take advantage of that and use that object. There are different kinds of objects that can be used, although we didn't go over it in detail here. There are objects such as, if you are overcome by, if your main obstacle and something that's really preventing you from meditating is attachment and, let's say, strong sensual desire, lust, whatever, Imagine to meditate on repulsiveness. Imagine, as in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara and other Theravada texts, imagine a body of someone who might be attractive to you. So let's say Richard Gere, or I don't know. Poor Richard. I hope he doesn't hear this. Or, I don't know, who's the Britney Spears? Who's old enough that the men might find as attractive? No? No, you don't find Britney Spears attractive, but maybe they do. Okay? Maybe some of the girls find her attractive. So imagine them decomposing. Cut them open with the scalpel of your mind. Remember I said that, because if any of you are arrested and you say, well, he told us to cut them open with a scalpel. Cut them open with the scalpel of your mind and see the blood and the pus and the, what's the white fluid called between the skin and the flesh? Plasma and the various, the fluid between the joints, the urine, the feces, the intestines. Where is there beauty that your mind is imputing upon that? So this kind of meditation, although at first, if it's not explained, you might think, oh, the Buddhists are they weird? Meditating on all of these impure substances, there's a great meaning to that. It doesn't mean just the female body. Obviously, Richard Gere would do also, or Dorje, or whoever's body you happen to be attached to. If you're overcome by hatred and anger, you can use the object of loving kindness. There, it's not a physical object that you're meditating on in front, but the state of of loving kindness, friendliness that you generate through an analytical meditation, thinking how wonderful it would be if all living beings were happy and had the cause of happiness. Once you've analyzed in many ways to overcome resistance to that thought and actually have some authentic feeling of loving kindness, then to hold that state, radiating out love, friendliness to all sentient beings, hold that single-pointedly, that could be your object of shine. Depends if a person is, say, overcome by antipathy or anger, or, So there are many different kinds of objects. So in order to give people a chance to prepare for class, in order to rearrange things, let's stop here and just dedicate the merit that we've undoubtedly created from good motivation at the beginning. Dedication is a mental action. Think, due to these merits, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha, like Ribur Rinpoche, like the Dalai Lama, like Shakyamuni. And by so doing, be able to set each and every sentient being, friends, enemy, and strangers, without exception, in that very same state of omniscience, of blissful peace of mind, blissful happiness.